Welcome, welcome. I'm Steve Tcherchian, Chief Product Officer and Chief Information Security Officer at XYPRO. And thank you for joining us this morning or this afternoon, or depending on where you are this evening, on our 2022 Cybersecurity Roadmap, where we're going to go over all of the new innovations that XYPRO brought to market last year in 2021 and how you can benefit from that. And then looking forward is what we have in store for 2022 and some of the enhancements and functionality that a lot of our customers have been desiring. Those will be part of our roadmap going into the next 12 months. So we'll talk about all those. Please feel free to make this as interactive as possible. I'm looking out at the chat box, the Q&A box, and I'm happy to take questions, comments, and have a dialogue on any of these topics. So as I mentioned, we'll talk a little bit about who and what XYPRO is. Most of you are already familiar with it as you're using our products in your environments. We'll talk about new solutions for 2022 that are available now that were released last year, and what 2022 looking forward for the next 12 months has in store. A little bit about XYPRO. We've been in the mission critical nonstop security space for about 40 years now. We're headquartered in sunny and windy Southern California. We've got expertise in HPE NonStop cybersecurity, compliance, database management. And if you've been following our social media and our postings, as well as HPE's, we recently acquired SAP HANA technology, security technology. So if you've got SAP HANA in your environment, come talk to us. We've got a security monitoring and compliance tool ready to go that's going to help you save a lot of time and money. Our organization is globally distributed, sales and support offices all over the world. We've got a very, very strong partnership with HPE and with companies like SailPoint, CyberArk, and ServiceNow, which we'll also be talking about today. And of course, XYGATE SecurityOne is our patented security intelligence and analytics technology. Just highlighting the global breadth of XYPRO, we've got over 700 customers worldwide. If you've got a nonstop server, you're a XYPRO customer. You've got XYGATE Merged Audit and you've got XYGATE User Authentication, two core components to making sure that your nonstop servers are compliant and properly secured. Merged Audit will let you integrate your nonstop data with endpoints like Splunk, QRadar, ELK, and other SIMs and SOARs. And user authentication will enable your nonstop to integrate with Active Directory and multi-factor authentication. Now, with XYPRO being globally distributed the way we are, we've got a 24/7 support operation, so we can help you within your time zone. And in fact, we've got we're fluent in over 24 different languages. So if you're more comfortable in communicating with us in a language other than English, we've probably got somebody on our staff that can help you out. So XYPRO's mission is to establish ourselves as your enterprise security partner. We're not just a vendor. We want to make sure that our initiatives and our roadmap align with your initiatives, and we're delivering business value in the areas that you're looking for. Now, from our customers and where nonstop has been going over the last few years, it's three core areas, mainly being innovation, is making sure our technology can expand into other areas of the business that can provide value. Modernization, this is a word that we're hearing over and over and over, is simplifying business process, is getting away from manual intensive activities and letting automation and modernization come in and leverage that for the greater good. And integration, everything being able to talk to everything. As the nonstop is becoming more globalized, more connected, more entry points into it, we need to make sure that they're secure and make sure that it can communicate with other enterprise investments in your ecosystem. All right, we're going to jump right into it. So talking about our roadmap, what we did last year, what we delivered and it's ready to go, and what we're going to be doing this year. Last year, we introduced a couple of new products that weren't previously available into the market. We introduced multi-factor authentication for your nonstop applications. So applications like Base24, or if you've got a homegrown application or other legacy applications that just don't have the modern infrastructure to connect to an RSA or to a Duo or to a ping, but still need to be secured with multi-factor authentication, we've got a library now that will attach to your application that will bring in multi-factor authentication capabilities. We introduced a compliance module to SecurityOne, as well as a Windows console, a nonstop Windows console monitoring module, which we'll talk about in a few slides. We did deeper integrations with CyberArk and ServiceNow, and we also enhanced our multi-factor authentication capabilities by introducing PEAP and MSCHAP v2 into our supported protocols. Now, looking forward into 2022, we're going to be spending some time getting SecurityOne into the cloud, and we'll talk about all the neat stuff that's happening there. More modernization for XYGATE merged audit. So being able to connect to a Splunk or an ELK using REST APIs. Modernization of XUA, allowing XUA to connect to additional multi-factor and authentication providers like Ping, Duo, Delinea, and others. Enhancements to our XYGATE Identity Connector, which is our integration into SailPoint and CyberArk, as well as some additional features and functionality being added to our database management products. Okay, jumping straight into it. Multi-factor authentication for nonstop applications. This is something that's been a desire for a lot of our customers for a very, very long time. XYPRO's always supported multi-factor authentication into the operating system. So with XUA that's already available on your system at no cost, you've got the ability to integrate your nonstop with two-factor authentication and multi-factor authentication. With this enhancement, this add-on module to XUA, that same capability for multi-factor authentication that you're used to for the operating system can now be integrated with your nonstop applications. Base24, for example, or if you've got a homegrown application or some other application that needs this requirement, we've got the library. So a Guardian user ID is not required. This is independent of any user ID existing on the system. It's an add-on module to XUA. So all you need is an additional license key to turn that feature on. It attaches to your existing application and introduces a couple of extra screens for that multi-factor authentication capability. It supports 6520, 6530, and 3270 applications. It can be a pathway or a non-pathway application. And with this capability, you can integrate your application with RSA Secure ID, Microsoft Authenticator, Google, Radius. You can leverage PEAP, MSCHAP v2, or any of the cloud authentication providers, Ping, Duo again, Delinea, and others. This is also a requirement for PCI DSS. Multi-factor authentication is necessary for all non-console administrator accounts, and this would fall into scope for that. So if you have this need, come talk to us. This functionality is already there. We've got customers using this. A couple of screenshots showing what the user experience would look like in Base24. So it stays exactly the way it is. We just have to modify the login screens to call this library. So the authentication process, you would put in your typical username and password, but before that user is authenticated into the application, you would get one additional screen asking for your, for example, your RSA token. Once that token is validated with that second factor, only then can you proceed to the application. The other module we introduced last year is our integration with ServiceNow. So this requires XYGATE access control. In a lot of environments, ServiceNow is your IT ticketing system, your change control system, your HPSM. A lot of the privileged authorizations go into ServiceNow before they're carried out. So a lot of our customers have ServiceNow in their environment, have nonstop environment. What would typically happen, the use case would look like is a privilege command gets executed on nonstop. In most environments, you have XYGATE access control. And as long as XYGATE access control authorizes that command execution, that command will execute and the command will run. What would happen though is with ServiceNow being introduced into the environment, those privilege commands need to be reconciled with a proper ServiceNow ticket to make sure that the command that was being executed was actually the command that should have been executed. Now, that's a manual process because the nonstop and the command execution process is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, but it has no awareness because there's no integration to ServiceNow if there's an appropriate ticket for that command. What this integration will do is before any command is executed, it will go out and validate with ServiceNow first. And only when ServiceNow gives it a thumbs up that that command is able to execute, will that command execute. So even though you have privileges to be able to run a command, unless ServiceNow tells you that, that command's not executing. This is moving us closer and closer to a zero trust model, because even though you have the access, unless there's validation coming from an independent third party, that being ServiceNow, that command, whether legitimate or not, is not going to execute. Now, we can do validation with ServiceNow on a variety of different factors. We can validate a ticket number. We can validate based on the user executing the command. We can verify the system the command is being executed on to make sure that the command that's being sent to the system is actually on the correct system being issued by the right user. This addresses so many concerns with regards to user error. So making sure that we've all done it. We've all issued a command on an incorrect system and, luckily didn't do any harm, but it would save you from any type of user error harm. We can also validate by time, by date, by command syntax, and a variety of other factors. So this eliminates the need to manually reconcile any commands on the system once a week by going into ServiceNow and checking that there's an appropriate ticket there. It's all done automatically. Our next integration is between XYPRO and CyberArk. So most of you are already familiar with XYPRO's initial integration with CyberArk, which was to the enterprise password vault. It allows you to vault your nonstop credentials, your super, or other credentials in the enterprise vault. Now, most of you are already using that, but where we've been working on over the last year or so with CyberArk is a deeper, more organic integration with CyberArk. So this new integration, our new CyberArk integration, will give you the same experience for nonstop that you would be used to on any other open systems, on Windows, on Linux, on any other platform. So the integration works exactly the same way. Is what would happen without this integration, things like function keys wouldn't work, block mode wouldn't work, 6530 emulation wouldn't properly work. And it was a challenge because the only way you could use CyberArk before this integration is writing some custom connector, which you had to maintain and ensure the functionality was kept up, or using SSH, which is going to limit what your experience is going to be on the nonstop. So for true nonstop to CyberArk integration, 6530 emulation needed to work. We worked in conjunction with CyberArk to develop this deep integration for end-to-end connectivity with CyberArk and nonstop. So what this will do is ensure that on the CyberArk jump server, the user, the source user that's connecting to CyberArk, their IP address and their username will traverse all the way into the nonstop logs. What was happening before this integration is a user would connect to the jump server and then use the CyberArk jump server to connect to nonstop. All nonstop would see was the IP address and the user of the jump server. So you lose the fidelity of the original source user that's connecting, which in this case is Michael Scott. So with this integration, Michael Scott's username and his IP address of his workstation will end up all the way in the nonstop logs. Now you can do more accurate data analytics, logging, reporting, and alerting based on the source user's IP address and username. The other functionality that was missing is, like I mentioned, function keys wouldn't work and block mode applications wouldn't work because the driver for CyberArk just couldn't support it. So with this functionality, with this integration, your block mode applications will work seamlessly and everything will be recorded in CyberArk, and your function keys will work as expected, and everything will be reported in CyberArk. Like I said, the easiest way to describe this is if you're familiar with CyberArk functionality on a Windows server or a Linux server, with this integration, NonStop works the exact same way as any other server that CyberArk is managing. This is available right now. We also made enhancements to XYGATE SecurityOne. So most of you are familiar with what XYGATE SecurityOne is. It's our unified security intelligence and analytics platform for NonStop. Its main goal is to reduce mean time to detection of any threats on NonStop. So what we would do is ingest raw data, correlate and contextualize that raw data into an actionable incident. So we're highlighting indicators of compromise to have you draw your attention to things that you should be paying attention to and ignoring or putting to the side things that just take up time and send you down rabbit holes. So SecurityOne's main purpose is to provide you actionable security data that will allow you to take countermeasures or other type of mitigating action. It's also got additional modules for compliance and risk management, file integrity monitoring, which we'll talk about in a minute. SecurityOne is a platform. It's a modular architecture, meaning you can license one module or multiple modules, depending on how mature your security program is and how strict your requirements are. It's an entire browser interface, nothing to install on your workstation. You just log into a website on Chrome or Edge or whatever you've got in your environment, and off you go. The application itself runs on, or the application server rather, runs on Linux or Windows, or can be run on the cloud, which we'll talk about in a slide or two. And like I said, it's extensible by adding additional modules. The more modules you have in SecurityOne, the more intelligent the data becomes, because the modules can leverage the data from each other. And in fact, the way we're doing the correlation and more importantly, the contextualization is patented to XYPRO. This allows us to bring in data that isn't traditionally used for cybersecurity analytics and allows us to provide greater insight to what that data is, again, for the purpose of reducing the mean time to detection. We want to give you actionable data by bubbling up to the surface the things you need to pay attention to, while moving to the side the things that are just going to take up time. You know, in the past, I've been responsible for managing security, and I'd get alerts. I'd probably get, I remember cases where I'd get 400 failed authentication events all within 30 seconds. And it would just blow up my phone, and I didn't know what to look at, what I need to pay attention to. So you end up clicking on the first message, scrolling to the bottom, clicking on the last one, and deleting the whole thing. But what if one of those messages was the one that one of those messages was the one that needed your attention? You'd never know, because they all look identical. That's what we're trying to avoid with SecurityOne, is filter out the noise and give you the actionable data. Last year, we introduced our compliance module. So this is the next step in, or the evolution of NonStop compliance management. So if you're familiar with tools like Qualys and Tenable and other compliance tools on open systems, the interface is going to look very, very similar. Everything's in a summary detail view. For example, the screenshot we're looking at here is PCI DSS. We've got requirements 1 through 12 across the top. I can quickly see which requirements are passing and which ones are failing. I can click on the red circle around requirement 8 and get the sub requirements underneath it. Then I can see which sub requirement is failing. So I can click on 8.1 and I can see which sub requirement is failing in there, and then see what corrective action I need to take to make sure that my system becomes compliant again. Now, you can monitor PCI DSS, you can monitor GDPR, or if you've got additional security frameworks or policies for your enterprise that need to go in here, we can easily create a rule pack that can be uploaded without having to reinstall the application, and you get visibility into those policies through SecurityOne right away. Everything's done in real time, so as things change on your system, and as that report is run, you're going to see those changes right away and see what is offending to create that, that failure. One of the first modules that most of our customers that take on SecurityOne use and need is file and system integrity monitoring. Now, file and system integrity monitoring is a requirement for just about every cybersecurity framework: PCI DSS, NIST, COBIT, NERC-CIP, SOX, HIPAA. All of them call out file integrity monitoring in one way or another. Now, at its core, integrity monitoring is telling you if something changed on your system. It's basically giving you alert when something changes on your system. Now, there's a lot of integrity monitoring tools out there, and they do that very, very well. They'll tell you if something changes on your system. And that's kind of what separates SecurityOne from what everybody else is doing. Everybody can tell you what's changed on your system, but we've taken a more intelligent, more real-time approach to file and system integrity monitoring. We can tell you what changed on your system right away, the minute it happened, plus tell you who did it, what the previous value was, what the new value is, if the value that was changed put your system at risk in any way, shape, or form, and do that all in real time. Now, we monitor everything across the system. We're monitoring users, we're monitoring files, we're monitoring system configuration. We've added functionality to monitor network ports. For example, if somebody opens up a network port on your system, which could be an entryway into your environment, you're going to know about it right away. We monitor processes, and we give those results all to you in a very understandable, summary, detailed dashboard view. Now, I've worked with monitoring tools before that do exactly this, that just inundate you with data. It's impossible to decipher what you're looking at unless you're a rocket scientist and honing in on exactly what you need. That wasn't the purpose of file and system integrity monitoring for SecurityOne. Yes, we do provide the guts of it where you can dig into the data and figure out what's going on if you're interested in that. But at a high level, we're giving you a summary of what's going on, what's changed. We do that all visually. So we've got graphs in the product where you can see how data is trending over time. You know, if certain files or certain users or certain configurations are changing in a certain interval or during certain times of day or during the week. You've got all of that in a visual interface. The context of who changed something is a game changer when it comes to integrity monitoring, because you'll know if it was somebody that was supposed to be changing something, if somebody didn't, or if it was a system process or an unexpected change. You're going to know the user ID of exactly who changed something. Not only that, you can click on any object in the dashboard and get the entire history lifecycle of that object. What that means is I can right-click on a file and click on details, and I can see every single time that file was read, modified, accessed, moved, whatever happened to it. And I can see who did it. I can see the previous value. I can see the new value. This becomes very important for system configurations as well, because as a system is deployed and as configuration drift occurs, this will help you manage who's changing what settings, for example, in your safeguard globals, understanding within context. If this setting was changed to this value, now it puts my system at risk for these factors. You'll get all of that in a single view. Now, the newest functionality we added to SecurityOne last year was an addition to our Appliance Sentry module. So for those of you familiar with our Appliance Sentry module, you know it monitors your nonstop CLIMs. So your network CLIM, your disk CLIM, and your telco CLIM. You can see visibility in how it's secured, how it's hardened, make sure it's getting to a green state and stays at a green state. We didn't stop there. We knew the Windows console is something our customers are very, very concerned with. In a lot of environments, the Windows console ends up in kind of this no man's land gray area where the nonstop folks are not responsible for managing security and updates on it. And the InfoSec folks think it's part of the nonstop infrastructure. So they're usually in a lot of environments, hands off the Windows console. So it kind of falls into this gray area, but it's a big risk to your system because if anybody ever got onto that console, now they could potentially get access to the rest of your system. The HPE hardening guide calls out exactly how that console should be secured and what you should and shouldn't do with that console. Now, this functionality as part of our Appliance Sentry module brings the eyes and ears to what the HPE hardening guide says you should be doing. So this is a visual interface to what the HPE hardening guide outlines as far as security controls. You can know in real time if how your console is supposed to be secured is secured that way. For example, we can see who's logging on to the console. We can see our firewalls. We can see if they're on, if they're off. We can see what firewall rules we have enabled. We can see our antivirus status, and we can make sure that our definitions are current on our antivirus. And we can see what Windows updates are installed, which ones are missing, and what risks exist because the certain patches are missing. We also outline everything by severity. So we draw attention to the most critical items first to make sure those get addressed. And then you can go down to the majors and the minors. But this is a single interface into everything security with your Windows console. Now, if you've licensed ASM for your CLIMs, this is default functionality that comes along with it in the new version of SecurityOne. Okay, jumping into 2022 and what we've got coming down the pike this year. Our big initiative is SecurityOne in the cloud. So this is an alternate to an on-premise deployment. Typically, SecurityOne will be deployed in your data center near your non-stops, which means you've got to stand up VMs or you've got to get servers and install the software, or at least the application on your on-premise infrastructure. Now, a lot of customers desire that approach still. But we've had a lot of customer requests where they want the flexibility of running SecurityOne on the cloud, because it allows them to get away from managing the system themselves. What would happen is XYPRO would create an instance either on your private cloud or in XYPRO's cloud. We'd install all the software, we'd install all the infrastructure. You don't have to worry about any infrastructure licensing. There's no SQL licenses or MongoDB licenses or anything else that comes into play. XYPRO would install the software and then turn over a URL to you to log in and then start consuming SecurityOne services. The only thing that we would need to do is install the host components on your nonstop, which most of you already have, XAC, XOS, and a few other components, and then create an encrypted tunnel between your nonstop network or whatever other network you want to connect to and our cloud, or like I said, your private cloud. It's encrypted end to end, so everything is secured, but no infrastructure for you to manage. The advantage here is you don't have to worry about Windows updates. You don't have to worry about troubleshooting. If anything were to go wrong, or if you need troubleshooting help from XYPRO, we can easily log into that environment and take care of the issue for you. So it reduces a lot of the effort, a lot of the cost, a lot of the maintenance required with running an application on premise. Now, like I said, there's a lot of customers that still desire that. We've got customers that want to have applications like this in their data center underneath that control. That option is not going away. It's still available. This is just an additional deployment model for customers that want to run SecurityOne in the cloud. Now, for those of you that want to look into doing a proof of value with SecurityOne, you're not a SecurityOne customer yet, but interested in kicking the tires and see what it can do for you. Again, we can use the same model. You stand up SecurityOne on the cloud. You don't have to install anything in your data center. We would just install the components on your nonstop, which you likely already have. Create a tunnel to AWS or whatever cloud you want to use and consume the services. So instead of waiting, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to stand up infrastructure and install software, we can do this in less than a day. So if you want to try out SecurityOne and you've been hesitant because just the timing involved and the overhead with standing up VMs or grabbing servers, let's use this method and get you set up and going right away. The next focus area for XYPRO this year is PCI DSS 4.0. Now, this is the first major release in the last 7 years for PCI 4.0. So we had 3.0 that was released in, I can't remember, 2014 or 2015. And since then, we've had updates. So we're at PCI DSS 3.2.1 right now. So 4.0 is the newest one that was supposed to be released in 2020. They moved it to 2021. They added some additional review cycles. So now it's supposed to be released in March or April 2022. It won't be fully enforced until late 2023, early 2024, which at that point, PCI DSS 3.2.1 will go away. But our products will have support for PCI DSS 4.0 this year. PCI 4.0 will be a rule pack added to XYGATE SecurityOne. So that compliance module that we saw earlier, PCI 4.0 will be an additional option that will be enabled in SecurityOne's compliance module for monitoring PCI DSS 4.0. Now, as far as what the requirements are going to be for 4.0, if you haven't seen our article on XYPRO's website yet, please visit xypro.com, go into the search box, type in PCI DSS, and you'll see the breakdown of the 7 key areas XYPRO identified that's going to be applicable to all NonStop customers that are under PCI DSS. Now, the requirements around authentication is where a lot of the effort is going to go. So we're going to see tighter controls around passwords. We're going to see tighter controls around complexity. We're going to see requirements, excuse me, for multi-factor authentication and PCI aligning themselves more with the NIST standards on password guidance. So where you were probably able to get away with MFA, compensating controls or other controls at the perimeter, this is going to push, 4.0 is going to push those MFA requirements closer and closer to the asset. So monitoring with SecurityOne becomes critical, but also what we talked about earlier, our application MFA library for things like base 24 or homegrown applications will help you become compliant with PCI DSS 4.0. 4.0, another important fact of 4.0 is it's going to introduce more monitoring requirements. So more real-time monitoring, more monitoring of third parties and internal threats. So things like SecurityOne are going to be very, very useful to making sure you can come up to compliance and remain compliant and report on compliance on a real-time ongoing basis. Another focus area this year for XYPRO is going to be the modernization of XYGATE Merged Audit. So every one of you on this call has XYGATE Merged Audit already on your system. Merged Audit's main purpose is integrating your nonstop security data with things like Splunk or ELK or QRadar or any other SIM or SOAR you have in your environment. It's free, no cost, nothing to purchase. I'm not selling you anything here. Turn it on and please start using it because it's going to give you immense insight into what's happening on your system right away. If you need help with configuring, installing Merged Audit or integrating it with Splunk or ELK or any other platform, please reach out to us, reach out to HPE, and we'd be more than happy to help you get it set up. Now, as far as what we're going to be doing in 2022, the current functionality for Splunk integration with Merged Audit is syslog or secure syslog in Ceph format or leaf format. We're adding functionality that will allow you to connect to Splunk using their HTTPS event collector or connect to any other Splunk endpoint or ELK or anything else in your environment using REST APIs. Now, using REST APIs will allow us to not just send it in Ceph format, but you can send data in JSON format or any other format that we can support. So we've got access to the data already. As Merged Audit goes out, parses all of your safeguard data, your XYGATE data, your application data. The parsers are already there. The integration endpoints are already there with our REST APIs. It's just a matter of structuring the format of how you want that data to be sent and how you want it to be received on the other end. Like I said, JSON will be available, Ceph will be available, Leaf will be available, and if there's other data formats that we need to support, please let us know, and it should be relatively easy to get you there if we're able to do it. We're also adding an additional parser or mover to Merged Audit. There's going to be a netbatch parser that's going to be introduced here in the next version. So we're going to be able to collect all of the netbatch log data and integrate that with Splunk or ELK or anything else that you need to integrate with. So again, you've already got this capability on your system. Nothing to sell here. Just turn it on, install it, start using it, integrating your data with Splunk. If you need help, reach out to us. We're going to be more than happy to help you. We did a webinar last year on XYGATE Merged Audit and the functionality and all the advantages that integrating your nonstop data with Splunk provides. So again, go to our website, XYPRO.com, type in Splunk integration in the search box, and you're going to get not only articles, but you're going to get a webinar that's going to list the top 5 use cases to create in Splunk to monitor security on nonstop. So this will give you a starting point where you don't have to boil the ocean, because once you open the data, once you integrate the data, you're going to get a ton of data sent into Splunk. It might overwhelm the Splunk team where they're scratching their heads going, I don't know what any of this means. Go to our website, check out that webinar, check out that article, focus on those 5 key areas, and that'll help you get started and get your security posture into an incredibly secure state. The other modernization area we're focusing on is XYGATE user authentication. So up to this point, we did support, or we do still support RSA Secure ID. We support Active Directory integration. And we've had customers that have been able to integrate user authentication with Microsoft Authenticator or a Google Authenticator. Last year, we added support for ADFS, that's Active Directory Federation Services. So now you can use ADFS as a multi-factor authentication provider. We also added support for PEAP, PEAP, and MSCHAP v2. So now you can integrate using those protocols if you desire. We're also seeing a lot of our customers adopting these newer cloud authentication providers like Ping, Duo, Okta. Centrify is a big provider in the nonstop environment, but Centrify last year merged with a company called Tycotic, which some of our customers also use, and then a couple of weeks ago rebranded themselves as Delinea. So with the new functionality, with the OAuth 2 and the SAML support that's coming in user authentication here in the next few months, you're going to be able to connect user authentication, XUA, with these additional cloud authentication providers. Okay, our next enhancement will be for XYGATE Identity Connector. This is our integration to SailPoint and CyberArk. So most of our nonstop customers that have SailPoint and CyberArk are using this connector. This is the only SailPoint certified connector and the only CyberArk certified connector for nonstop. If you call SailPoint, call HPE and say, I need to integrate nonstop with SailPoint or CyberArk, they're going to point you to this connector. So its main functionality for SailPoint is to provision, deprovision, and reconcile identities and user IDs from nonstop to SailPoint. For CyberArk, it's integration with the enterprise password vault. Now this year, we're going to be adding additional functionality to the SailPoint integration, where it's going to allow you to do group aggregation as well. Not just user aggregation, but being able to pull in nonstop groups and being able to assign nonstop groups from SailPoint. There's also some user enhancement, experience enhancements that's going into the product that's going to make it easier to use, easier to troubleshoot when issues arise. The big enhancement to XIC this year is going to be support for base 24. What that means is you can currently provision an identity or user ID from SailPoint to nonstop for safeguard. But base 24 is an application that runs on nonstop. You're going to have the ability to provision and deprovision user IDs for base 24 users directly from SailPoint. So just like nonstop plugs into SailPoint as an additional application that you can provision to, now base 24 will plug into SailPoint the same way. So you can create base 24 IDs directly from SailPoint. You can disable base 24 IDs directly from SailPoint or reconcile all of your base 24 IDs into SailPoint. So you get a more holistic view of what access that identity has in SailPoint. You'll know that they have safeguard or nonstop access and to which systems, and you'll know that they have base 24 access and to which systems. And some additional updates we're doing to some of the other products we've got out there. We're adding support for the new ECC ciphers. Windows 2019 disabled by default some of the older ciphers and enabled functionality by default for the new ECC ciphers. So we're adding functionality or support for in our products to be able to work with Windows 19 and Windows 2022 with these new ciphers. We're going to be adding support for TLS 1.3. Now 1.2 right now is the current standard, recommended standard. 1.3 was released a year or two ago, and the transition period to 1.3 has been slow, but it's coming. So if 1.3 isn't already on the radar, just like PCI DSS 4.0, it should be, because it's going to be a requirement here in the next 12 to 18 months. We're going to be adding additional functionality to XYGATE Safeguard Manager, mainly picking up all the new configuration settings that Safeguard has introduced over the last 12 months or so. And then we're adding functionality in SQL Express, which is our database management tool, for support for SQL MX 3.8. So 3.8 has support for native blobs, runtime statistics, row counts, all that functionality over the next 12 months or so will be going into SQL Express. So you can fully manage SQL MX 3.8 from SQL Express. So just rounding it out, summarizing what we talked about, enhancements to SecurityOne. We're going to be focusing on the cloud and PCI DSS. For XMA, we're going to have a Splunk connector and a REST connector. For XUA, we're adding support for OAuth 2 and SAML, which will allow you to connect to cloud providers. For XIC, Identity Connector, we're adding group aggregation and the ability to provision, deprovision base 24 user IDs. TLS 1.3 is a focus area, and SQL MX, or support for SQL MX in SQL Express. Okay, I do want to call out our next webinar, which is going to focus on our NonStop to ServiceNow integration. That'll be March 17th. So look out for an email, check our website, make sure you follow our LinkedIn. As that webinar registration becomes live, we'll be posting on all those different areas so you can jump in and make sure that you catch that webinar. With that said, I hope you found the session very, very informative. I know we went through a lot of content in a quick amount of time. If there's any questions, any thoughts, you want to expand on anything, I'll be here for a few minutes. I can take some questions. I'm here live. It's not recorded, so I can take some questions. Otherwise, please feel free to reach out to me, reach out to XYPRO, connect with us, make sure you're following our LinkedIn, because as these things get released, we'll be posting on LinkedIn, on Twitter. You'll receive an email, but we love conversation. We love feedback. So please feel free to reach out. Okay, I see a couple of questions in the chat box. The first one is the ServiceNow module an independent product? So the ServiceNow integration is actually an add-on module to XYGATE Access Control. So XYGATE Access Control gives you the ability for role-based access control on NonStop plus keystroke logging. So we're able to see every command issued on the system. That becomes an important component to ServiceNow integration, because with access control, we can see all of the keystrokes and all of the commands being issued. Then we can take those commands, send them to the ServiceNow module, and have it validated with ServiceNow before that command is executed. So if the ServiceNow doesn't give us the thumbs up, that command is not executing. Again, we're having a webinar on exactly this topic on March 17th. Please join. But if you want more information ahead of time, please reach out to us, or I can put you in touch with your account executive and they can get you more information. Okay, can we send a copy of the slides for others that were unable to attend? Alan, absolutely. This will be posted on our website. It'll be posted on YouTube, and we can share the slides around, not a problem. Okay, and then one last question about how do I get SecurityOne set up on the cloud, and is any on-premise infrastructure required? Okay, so setting up SecurityOne on the cloud, you're not the one that would install SecurityOne in a cloud infrastructure. If it's on XYPRO's cloud, we'll take care of installing the product end to end. No involvement unless you want to from your team. So we'll stand up the servers or the AWS instances, we'll install the software, we'll configure it, And then we'll also help you install XYGATE Access Control, XYGATE Object Security, and a few other agents on your NonStop. Now, those agents are necessary to run on your NonStop because they generate all of the data needed for SecurityOne to be able to do its analytics. So you install the components on your NonStop in your data center, and then the only other piece is connectivity to the AWS instance. So other customers have just set up an IPsec tunnel, which is an encrypted VPN tunnel between their NonStop network and the AWS infrastructure. And then you just start pumping us with data. Once we have the data in SecurityOne, it's there. You log in via a website and start consuming services and start monitoring. Now, we're not doing the monitoring for you. We're just providing the infrastructure and troubleshooting and updates and security patches and those types of things. But the data is your data. We're not looking at the data. We're not interrogating the data. We're not mining the data. We're keeping it completely independent to you. Again, if you want to try it out, if you were thinking about how you get started on SecurityOne, please reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to do a proof of value with you. Setup will take less than a day. So we can quickly get one started for you. You can quickly see what SecurityOne will provide for you. Okay, I don't have any other questions in the box. So again, I'm always happy to listen to feedback, thoughts, expand on any one of these topics, have a conversation about anything and anything we talked about. So please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I appreciate everybody's time today. Thank you so much for taking an hour out of your day to listen to what XYPRO has going on this year. Hopefully what we talked about will help you going forward with your projects this year. And good day, everybody.